a first politician there to speak out against the many events offered to children involving drag queens. Indeed, the leader of the Conservative Party of Quebec, Éric Duhaime, decided to take the time to listen to the concern of many parents about this new phenomenon. In the name of diversity, inclusiveness, and acceptability, institutions, especially schools and libraries, present rather dubious events to young children. Following a protest against a story time with the drag queen Barbada, a protest that went wrong, Quebec Solidaire tabled a motion that deplored the rise of hate and discrimination against LGBTQI2S+ people in the public sphere. Members of Parliament unanimously passed it, but Éric Duhaime has launched a petition calling on the government to stop funding activities that expose children to drag queens and to make parental consent mandatory. Drag queen Barbada, whose real name is Sébastien Potvin, is a strong supporter of Quebec Solidaire. And he mentioned that the magic of a young tale is that you can talk about adult subject with children word. Is that really appropriate? We discussed more about it with Éric Duhaime. After the motion that was bring into the National Assembly, you came out with a petition about the drag queen show that we saw rising in school and library. Why did you come out with this petition?
Well, last week I held a press conference on another issue. It was on Bill 19, actually, which has nothing to do with drag queens and kids. And I was asked questions by the journalists because the day before, the National Assembly's member unanimously adopted a motion tabled by the Quebec Solidaire, the radical left party, saying that we condemn violence towards drag queens. I agree that we have to be respectful with each other when we debate about those issues. I agree. What I totally disagreed with in that petition is that it says, and I quote, that we should expose our kids to drag queens so Quebec could be a model, an example around the world to promote equality and diversity. I'm sorry, but it's not the government of Quebec's role to promote moral values and decide instead of parents which kind of values they want to share with their kids. We do believe as conservatives that it's the role of the parents to decide what's best for their own children. And that's why I came out against it. And there's also another confusion in that motion that was adopted. And it's the fact that they present drag queens as a gender. I'm sorry, but drag queens are not a gender. They're not part of the gay community. They're not part of the trans community. Drag queens are people wearing a costume. It's men wearing costume, a caricature of women to do shows and to earn money. It's a business. This is what drag queen is all about. It's not a sexual orientation, and it's not a transformation of your body in the long run because you don't feel that you have the right sex. So it's very important to differentiate those two things, which it doesn't do the motion. And so it was important for us to come out and to say this is not acceptable. And if we agree that it's the role of the parents and the state should not decide, then taxpayers shouldn't pay for such activities. If drag queens want to talk to kids, they shouldn't do it in our kindergartens. They shouldn't do it in our schools. They shouldn't do it in our public libraries. They should go and rent a theater, sell tickets. And if there's parents who are willing to have drag queens reading stories about the theory of gender or sexual diversity, it's their own choice, because that's the problem with those drag queens coming in our schools and our kindergarten or our library, is that they're coming in with a political speech. It's the woke community that is pushing those drag queens to bring that. And so, we in Quebec, we have a tradition. It's been decades that we've decided collectively that the Catholic Church, which was at the basis of our education system, was out of our public schools, our public kindergarten, our public libraries, because we thought that we shouldn't promote moral values to our kids. Schools are there to teach, to educate, but they're not there to push ideas and values. So we kicked out our nurses and our priests, and it's not to bring drag queens instead. I mean, and people who are doing it right now, they know what they're doing. They want to promote an ideology, and we need a political answer. And that's why the Conservative Party of Quebec tabled a petition.
And, you know, all these events bringing children and drag queen together, do you think that is begin to be a little bit harmful for the LGBTQ community?
When you're pushing too strong for a cause, you could hurt it, actually. And this is what I'm concerned about, because, you know, people are not willing to do that. You have to be in phase with your population. It's not because you're trying to put something in their throat against their will that it's going to be easier. It could backfire. And that's what I'm concerned about. And that's why, as conservatives, we're presenting a petition, because we want to do it in a democratic way. We don't want any kind of violence. We don't want to insults. We want a debate that is respectful of everybody. You know, for me, somebody who wants to do whatever they want, if they're not depriving other people from their freedoms around them, if they're happier that way, that's the important thing. But with this debate, if we're muzzled, if the people think that we're unanimous, because this is what the National Assembly did, they adopted that motion unanimously, and the population is divided, there is a democratic problem. And there's a source of tension out there. So we want to make sure that we express our views, that we show that Quebecers are not unanimous on that. We already have close to 30,000 people who signed our petition. Hopefully there's going to be a lot more over the next few hours and few days. And actually, everybody should go on ericduhem.quebec if you want to sign the petition. I invite you to do so. And the more people there's going to be, we're going to be stronger to show that there's no way Quebec is unanimous on such an issue.
Because you express it many times. You like drag queen and you have nothing against them. It's really, the problem is really with the funding of the government towards events that bring drag queen and children together. Can you just explain the difference for the people? Because most of the people will say, but it's volunteer event, so nobody have something to say. But when it comes to public funding, this is something else.
Exactly. So, you know, drag queen shows are great. If people like it, you know, if you want to have a dream, you can like it or you can dislike it. It doesn't matter. It's like any artist. You can like them or you can dislike them. There's nothing wrong. Everybody has the right to decide which kind of show they prefer, which kind of music they prefer, which kind of theater they prefer. This is your personal decision, and the government shouldn't intervene into that. So I think it's very important to respect drag queens. They have the right to do their job. But that being said, when it's a matter of kids, when it's a matter of public money, then it's another issue. And then the state needs to stay neutral. The state cannot take side and decide, oh yeah, let's push for drag queens and let's push to expose our kids to those drag queens because we want to show the rest of the world that we're more tolerant or more diverse than the others. This is wrong. It's not the state's role to take side when there's moral issues at stake. The state should be as neutral as possible and make sure that we stay united as a society and everybody is respected. And this is not what is going on right now. They're pushing for one side of the agenda unanimously, and that's why I'm concerned.
And talking about unanimously, when you went out with your petition, there was a big backlash in the media against your position on it. Were you surprised of it?
Well, I was surprised by some reporters who were not very honest and saying that we were anti-drag or that we're against the hateful message that the National Assembly was trying to kill. It's not that at all. What I was against in the petition is the fact that they want to expose our kids, and I was actually saying the opposite. I was saying that we need to stay respectful. So I was surprised by that, and also you know, it's almost unanimous when people come out, and you know, I'm talking about the commentators or the columnists and all the people who are talking and giving their paid to give their opinions in the traditional media. They were all against us over the last few hours. But what I'm surprised of is that many are calling me or writing me and saying me privately that they kind of agree with us, but they wouldn't have the courage to say it. And they say, oh, you can say it because you're gay. Or you know, Michelle Blanc, who's transsexual, came out with me. She's the most well-known trans here in French Quebec. And you know, she can say it because she's trans. You can say it because you're gay, but we can't say it because we're a white heterosexual male and wealthy. So we were all on the wrong side of everything, and that's concerning because that's also the problem with the wokes, is that they try to muzzle people who think different than them instead of debating. And this is what I hate about that movement. We need to be able to have a good discussion, and ultimately, you know, we live in a democracy and people respect the will of the majority.
We saw a really big lack of debate when we were in the pandemic. And are we going to another era where the debate will not be possible? Because if you try to talk, you already be labeled by transphobic or homophobic. Do you think that it's a little bit dangerous path
It is
that
dangerous,
we are
and
entering?
especially on that issue, because it has nothing to do with transphobia or it has nothing to do with homophobia. When you're talking about drag queens, they're people wearing a costume. Like, it has nothing to do with that. It's a political agenda that they want to bring in the public space. They want to show a public speech to the youth by using the drag queens. The drag queens are actually used by the woke movement currently, and we know that the woke strategy is the cancel culture. And this is what we're seeing. And yes, I'm concerned about the techniques that they're using. They do the same thing on climate change. They do the same thing on many other issues. You know, ultimately, I'm a Democrat, and people who are pushing for the cancel culture are not, because the freedom of expression is one of the pillars of our democracy. And if we let that go, it's not good news. We're in trouble.
So we will put your petition link on the bio, but also what you're going to do with that petition, and do you think that will change something?
Well, for sure, it already changed something. The fact that we came out with that petition now in Quebec, a strong majority of people know that the motion was adopted unanimously, because people didn't even know about the motion until a few hours ago. So we already won on that side. On the second, on the other hand, it's much better to have a petition than doing nothing. For sure, it will change more if we sign a petition than if you do nothing. And thirdly, as soon as we're going to have enough signatures, I'm going to ask for a meeting with the minister responsible of the issue, Martine Biron, and go present her the petition and remind her that Quebecers are not unanimous, no matter what the CAQ thinks and says, or Quebec Solidaire. So it's that's gonna make a difference. So as you know, as much people we can have, the stronger the message will be. So I invite you all to go and sign that petition.
So if you think that teacher and also the institution like school should not speak about sexuality to children, go to our website, that is stopclassroomgrooming.com, sign our petition, share it, and make a difference on this new phenomenon that we observe more and more in school.